Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Yves Lamson, and I'm joined by my Pluma Collective colleague, Shirley Camia, and our friend, Kat Estacio. Say hi again, guys.
Hello.
Howdy.
So, the reason why we're here tonight is to screen the short film Novena that Shirley and Kat collaborated on. Shirley is the author of the poem Novena, and Kat is responsible for creating the score. So for those of you who don't know either Kat or Shirley, here's a little bit about them. So Shirley is an author and poet and has 4 collections of poetry under her belt. Mercy, which was a 2020 finalist at the High Plains Book Awards. She also has Children Shouldn't Use Knives, which was a 2018 winner of the Manuela Diaz Book Design and Illustration Award at the Manitoba Book Awards, and also received an honorable mention at the Alcuin Society Awards for Excellence in Book Design in Canada. She's also the author of critically acclaimed and much loved by me, The Significance of Moths, which was published in 2015. I know Joseph, I will admit him. And her earliest work was Calliope, which was published in 2011. Kat Estacio, who's with us, who's outside, got potted plants behind her. Phenomenal. She is she is a Toronto-based creative working in music, sound, analog collage, print media layout design, and project design. She is also a founding member of Canada's first and only all-woman Filipina kulintang group, Pantayo. And what's really awesome, great news for Pantayo, is their debut album was recently shortlisted for the Polaris Music Prize. That's amazing, Kat. Congratulations. She is also the talented musician behind the score for Novena, which we will be screening tonight. I wanted to say a little bit about Mercy. And Mercy is right here. It is the collection of poetry that Novena belongs to. It was launched in, I believe, May last year, Shirley?
May, yes.
Yeah, May last year. And I remember actually getting the email announcement and the information for where it was going to be launched and when and all that stuff. And it was a little bit different because when I read it, what I can remember from it is there was a specific ask to be there on time and that you would be locking the doors.
That wasn't me. Let me just say that was not me. We just went on Filipino time. I would not have done that, but that was the venue who had very strict rules.
Oh, really?
And they enforced them. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know what though? Like I didn't understand why, but as you started talking about what mercy is, I got it. So mercy is more than just a collection of beautiful turns of phrase and poignant images. It's the detailing of what it's like to lose a parent. And there was I guess like a feeling of solemnness there that potentially would have been interrupted with people walking in and out. So I don't like hearing now that it was the venue, but I think it worked out that, you didn't have people walking in as you were kind of discussing this. And just a little bit more about this phenomenal piece of work that I love. And it's a hard read, and it's not a difficult read in that it's not accessible or that it's intentionally difficult or requires intense dissection of like the stanzas or whatever. I mean, there is that for sure. You have the ability to go in there and dive deeper. But what's difficult is kind of the emotional content within the pages. I haven't lost a parent, but I think about it, especially during like the pandemic and all the worries that we have about our health and all of that. And by reading this collection, by sitting with those really intense feelings and emotions and difficult things to really kind of wrap your head around, I feel like I'm a little bit better prepared for the inevitable in some way. So I don't know, like Y'all should pick it up. It's really great. A lot of Shirley's stuff is phenomenal. And when she asked me to facilitate this conversation and the screening, I was all for it because I will always support her work. Her work is phenomenal.
Thanks, V.
You're welcome. I mean it. I mean it. So finally, before we jump into screening the short film, I wanted to give you guys something to think about. And I wanted to tell you that this short film is a form of meditation, reflection, and healing and self-healing. It also caps off Filipino Heritage Month in Toronto and is dedicated to the Filipino frontline workers who have been disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 crisis. So, Kat, if you would do the honors of sharing your screen, I'm going to mute myself and we can watch the short.
On the very first day, the ants are lighting candles in front of a grainy photo of you in the Philippines at an empty buffet, smiling in a natural smile. Their prayers fill the room. Outside, the snow is rampant, battered. All I can think, they made us take your clothes. You must be so cold.
So yeah, I don't know if that when we ran through our rehearsals for this, we had noticed that sometimes it would be a little bit choppy. So if it was choppy for anyone, we're going to be providing a link to the actual Vimeo so you can watch it on your own. And I've watched it a bunch of times, and there's just this feeling, this ambiance through it, and we're going to discuss that now. I have a couple of questions just for Kat and Shirley. Um, all right, so where is that? All right. So okay, I guess the first question that we should probably, where's Kat?
She's there. Don't worry. She's here.
Okay, cool.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. So I guess the first question that I wanted to ask you guys is, there might be a few people in the audience that don't know what a novena is. Could you both explain what the purpose and the significance of the novena is within Philippine culture?
Okay. For me, I don't know if it's different for you, Kat, but it's 9 days of prayer that starts the night that somebody dies, and not just Filipino, but specifically Catholicism. So it's a ritual of prayer that goes with the rosary, and it's just for me, it's not just the tradition that really we needed to do to come together, but also this very personal way of being able to send somebody off. And it gave me comfort. I'm not the most religious person now, but knowing that there were rituals that connected me to my mother, who was very religious, gave me a lot of comfort in that time where I desperately needed it. So that to me is what it is and what it is to my family. I don't know, if Kat, if you have any different thoughts about it, or if any of my relatives say that's not right, that's not it at all, please let me know and I can correct myself.
Yeah, I also grew up Catholic, although I'm not practicing any religion right now. Um, and my understanding of it when I was growing up was it is a ritual for the person who has passed. So I think when I was growing up, I had some idea of it when my grandfather and an uncle had passed away. But since I don't know, maybe it was because I was young then that I didn't quite grasp what it meant or like what the significance of it was. And it wasn't until my grandmother had passed away when I was an adult. And that was kind of like the meaning of it. I was able to understand better. So for someone who isn't a practicing Catholic, I knew that the novena wasn't for me. It was for my grandmother, and this is something that you do for a loved one um, because they believed in it. And I think that um, my love for my grandmother is greater than my ego for like not doing it because I'm not practicing. So yeah, I think it's a way to honor that love for a family member, to process grief together as a family, um, and yeah, it's kind of a send off to that loved one.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I I've been to quite a few funerals in my life, and one of the ones that I remember was somebody who was pretty close to me, and my girlfriend's mother at the time attended the funeral, and I remember her turning to me and just with like grief in her heart said, "I wish I were religious because it seems like it helps." And like
Mm.
it's just one of those things where you see people that so fervently believe, and it gives them comfort. And you know it is also the community aspect of it. When somebody passes and you see your family members around praying, it just feels like you're feeling what they're feeling, and we're all feeling it together. And that is a part of grief, right? Sharing that, not holding it in. um, all right, so the next question I wanted to ask was for Shirley. And Shirley, I know you've already spoken about the poem itself, but like, could you tell us a little bit more about when and where and why you wrote Novena, and also the collection, how, like, the process of getting it together?
I didn't write it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right after my mother's death, it was very hard to process anything and to write. So I let myself grieve in those few months following her death. And it was just one day where I just had some source of inspiration and I went, I think this could be something. And the poem came, and then the next day, and then the next day, and all of a sudden 2 months passed by. And from nothing to all of a sudden I had 50 poems. I went, I actually have a collection now. And I felt each poem was a little bit of a gift. And that was the initial manuscript for Mercy. And I was going to call it 50 Days of Mercy because it felt a little bit like 50 days of my mother giving me this gift to help me process, to give me some comfort at that time. So that's how it was created. And I mean, Novena was just part of the process of that. This initially, when I started Mercy, it was such a raw manuscript and very emotionally quite draining, I think, for a lot of people. Just the grief was so immediate and intense. But 5 manuscripts later, I think I was able to see it from a different perspective with a more long-term view of grief and the process it holds and the way it was processed for me.
Mhm.
And I think the collection deserved that. I think the collection seems more of a well-rounded collection because of the fact that not only was it on one side, I was going through the grief, but at the same time, I was going through the process of writing it. And together, we created the ultimate final product, Mercy.
I don't know how many times I can say this, but like it is. I actually would love to read. I remember you were telling me when we were discussing Mercy, just like on a personal level, that a lot of people had a lot. Like it was just so raw. I would love to read that, but also
You
I'm
don't want to read
scared of it.
that.
I'm
You don't
so
want to read
scared
that.
of it.
We have a comment, and I'm just wondering if I can read this
Sure, go ahead.
out loud. Maybe the person who wrote it to me about the Shiva can say if I can read it out loud. I don't want to share words without any permission. We can do that, but please let me know. Send me a message, and then maybe we can share your comment once we hear from you.
Sure. Okay. While we're waiting on that, I guess we can move on to the next question. So this is kind of for both of you. Uh, so Shirley, what emotions and thoughts did you wish to convey through Novena? And for Kat, what specific ambiance did you wish to create in the soundscape?
I think for the images, for me, it was quite literal. When I was speaking with Rosie and Victor about the film and the creation of it, the poem lent itself very well to very different aspects of media. So there were people's voices, not only mine, but my aunt's voices, which you heard in that collaboration. It lent itself to the wind and the sound of a blizzard outside, which was happening as well. So there was so much going on internally and externally at the time. It just felt like a bit of a cacophony internally, and I wanted that to be conveyed externally. So that's why there are so many elements that I wanted to add into it. I mean, it's ultimately my writing is very minimal, and I subscribe to this economy of words and simplicity and choosing the best word for the purpose. But this just lent itself so well to having so many people create the project and a sense of community. I mean, going back to what Kat had said about community, people coming together for a loved one, that's exactly what had happened. So that is something I also wanted to convey. And the person did say yes, so thank you. I don't know if you wanted to read the comment, V, and then I'll pass you and Kat the floor.
I actually can't see what they sent
Oh.
you, so.
Oh, well, then I will read it out loud. We're dealing with the kinks of Zoom, folks, so bear with us. So my name is Devo. Before you explained what a novena is, I knew. In Jewish culture, we have something similar called a shiva. The video struck a chord and brought tears to my eyes when you talked about taking the clothes. They did that when my mom passed as well. The video has a lot of emotion. The short has big emotion. Very well done. Thanks for sharing. And thanks for sharing the comment, Devo. That was, one of the most poignant moments for me as well. The clothes, that sort of reality of finality to me. Nobody is going to be wearing these anymore. So thanks. I'm glad that struck a chord for you as well.
Thanks, Devo. So just the second part of that question, which was for Kat.
Just I think the feeling of this collaboration or like the directive that I kind of took in creating the soundscape is very emotionally charged. Just drawing from my experience of grief as well, and when Shirley shared what this poem was about, I took to that as what I wanted to create. It's kind of I wanted to create space. I wanted to create distance between um, Shirley's voice, who, you know, is narrating the poem, and it's almost like it's very front and center when you hear her voice as part of the film. And then um, the the prayer was kind of like peppered on top of it. And then I used these changing and modulating synth sounds to also kind of reflect that this is a change, you know, a process that doesn't um, stay the same. So our relationship with grief changes every day, I think. So, and also it depends on the person. So um, having those different elements kind of um, was the, I think the ideas that struck um, the direction that I wanted to go. And then this feeling of coldness um, and longing, because you're never going to have that loved one back again in your life. So the spaciousness, distance was definitely like intentional. And I also created this drone-like um, sound as the bedrock of the score, because I feel like that's something that you can feel in your gut, um, and it's not, sometimes you can't tell that it's there, but it's just like has this reaction to your body.
Yeah, I love those answers. So Shirley, you described the creation of this short film to me as a collaborative effort. And, you know, as a writer myself, I understand all too well how protective an artist can be and must be of their work. And I try to put myself into like your position, and you know, I tried to think about like what it must feel like to invite somebody or other, like a bunch of other people, into this intimate space to create a short film based on something that is so incredibly close, you know. Like I can't imagine with Bodies of Water that I would be like, hey, do you want to throw in a paragraph here, or you know, it just, or do you want to I don't know, if it were ever to turn into a film, I would be super, super protective. And like, what was that like?
I mean, it's a different medium, which I've never created a short film before. And so I can definitely see, and for my work, I'm very protective of my writing. But in this instance, I have no idea what it
Right.
takes to create a short film. I don't know what it takes to create a musical score, how to do motion design, that sort of thing. My background is radio journalism, so I could edit sound and I can write, and that was the extent. So finding people to be able to collaborate with that I knew had the talent to be able to fulfill roles in this project, that to me, I mean, I was, the more the merrier. And to be honest, it was something that I felt was more of a learning experience for me to be able to see how Kat works and her creative process behind this, and what we needed to do to make it sound the way it does, because my aunt's voices did not sound like that. I got a recording over WhatsApp and we had to fix it. So it sounds dreamy now. So it's part of that sort of dreamlike sequence where everything in this film, except for my voice, is surreal. So there are so many things that I've learned in this that I wouldn't have otherwise. And it's an exploration of a new medium that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to explore. So really, for me, I'm just really grateful for the experience, or for people like Kat who say, yes, I'll work on it and I can learn
Right.
from them.
Kat, what was it like for you to work on the short film that is, and knowing that the source material is so emotionally connected to the author? Like, what was, that must be feel like a lot of responsibility to do it correctly.
Hmm. That's like that is definitely a thought that crossed my mind, but I think that since it's connected to human emotion, I find that it's better to kind of express from my understanding of it, even though um, it's not the same experience. Because if I try to get it right, for example, then I'm centering another person and another person's experience in that creation process. And by going with what I know, then that feels um, true to me.
Mhm.
Then human emotion is very relatable, no matter how different the specific details are for each of us. So I think that was really important for me to kind of see where I'm at and dig through those like uncomfortable emotions. And I think that there's also cultural familiarity. Um, as I said, I was also culturally Catholic when I was growing up. So that definitely helped um, because I understood why there were prayers. I understood why, there were candles. So, details like that.
One question that just kind of came up to me right now is pretty obvious, but like, Shirley, are you going to be like creating more of these? Is this something that you and Kat are gonna do, like make a thing? I would love to see more.
No, Kat, do you want to do it?
That's it.
That's awesome.
I would love to. Has been such a fun in this COVID time where we're all isolating, and I don't know in various places what the situations are for everybody. It's so isolating.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons I really wanted to work on something with people was to have that communion with people and to be able to creatively speak to people in a way that I wasn't able to in person anymore. So, and to be able to reach out to people that I never necessarily associated with or weren't in my creative circle, like Kat, for example. So, yeah, I would love to do this more. I would love to creatively collaborate with other people. And I think COVID has really kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities of doing this.
Hmm. And it's like it's trying to find those things that not necessarily replace what we're used to, like the forms of communication we're used to, just trying to find our way to, create, survive, and still kind of feel connected. Like this is probably the most social I've been since March. Like this right here, this, and when you asked me to host and to kind of facilitate the conversation, it was just like, yes, for sure, I'm starved for human interaction, even though it's just through a screen. But yeah, I would love to see more. I could just see, like, how Beyonce does her like visual albums and stuff like that. Like a visual collection would be super. That would be so
I'll
great.
keep that in mind. We don't have the Beyonce budget, but I'll keep it in mind. Thanks.
You got the flair though, so that works. I got a question for Kat, just about like a technical question. So Kat, did you use analog sound sources or in the box digital audio plugins, or were they live process instruments that you used?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because my intention at the beginning was definitely to use actual gongs, um, the kulintang. So I use kulintang, and it's a Filipino metal percussion instrument, and it's a series of pot-shaped um, gongs, and each gong sounds different from the next, and each set sounds different from another set. So I think my intention was definitely to record those instruments live in at home, but I thought that the 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 process of capturing sound could be done in a different way. So what I mean by that is I also have samples of those same gongs that are that were recorded in a studio environment, and then basically each hit of a gong is turned into an audio file. So then I just use them as samples. Um, so when I was creating the foundation of the score, I started with the drone. It kind of feels like a howling wind and this uneasiness that you can feel in your stomach. And
When
then,
sorry, just to interrupt you. When you say drone, what do you mean? What is for, for people that don't know what a drone is? Like,
yeah,
I've heard it before technically, but if you could explain
mhm.
it, that'd be great.
Yeah. So a drone is like a hum, like that's consistent from start to end. It doesn't have dynamic sounds, loudness, or like softness. It doesn't have movement. It doesn't have rhythm. So it's just like a constant hum. It's kind of like what you hear um, when you are beside an air conditioner, for example, or yeah, or like anything, any kind of appliance that. Um, oh, can you hear me better if this is like this?
Yeah, much
Okay.
better.
Okay. Cool. Um, yeah. So the it's kind of some people call drone as not music or non-music or noise. So that's something that I incorporate in my work because of um, how meditative it could be, because you just focus on one consistent sound. So that was where I started building the score for this. I think with any kind of sound project that I have, um, I tend to start with a drone and then work around it.
Hmm.
Does that explain it?
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah. So then after um, playing with some of the drone sounds, I encountered this synth sound that kind of sounds like metal or ice or high pitched glass even that sounds like it's trickling, um, and then I laid that on top. And then I remember one of the things that Shirley mentioned when I was asking for like the feel of the score was that she said that she wants it to be solemn. So I think that was also part of the reason why I kind of chose those two different sounds. And then I asked Shirley also to send me a sound recording of how she would read the poem, because I think cadence um, would be important in this piece, and that I want to be able to place the gong sounds in conversation with Shirley's voice. So if you watch the film again, um, I placed the first gong sound to come right after the word Philippines because it's like a rooting of you know of the instrument. It's a point of reference for for anybody who's familiar with Novena. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I was going with, and all of that to say that all of those ideas were happening, and then I thought that I already have the samples of kulintang sounds, so then I would just need to incorporate that into the score. So I ended up using the samples because I didn't think it was necessary to record the gongs, because it could be more complicated because I am not set up at home for a home studio. So and it could be redundant since I already have the sample. So I wanted to keep it simple, basically, but
Gotcha.
still have that effect. Yeah.
Awesome. I have one final question for Shirley, and it's also kind of technical-ish. Um, where did my questions go? Oh, here. Um, no, that's not it. So I'm going to share my screen briefly here, and I will ask a question in regards to it. So there. So this is how Novena looks like on the page. And Shirley, my question for you is, so in workshops on poetry, they drive the point home that form equals content. Could you
Oh,
speak?
sorry, V. I think it was just zoomed in. Could you zoom out of the image? Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
That's
Okay.
great. Yeah, thanks. And just before you get to that question, I just have a couple of comments here, just going about the drone.
Sure.
So drone, thanks Devo again for describing it as a white noise. And then thanks to my cousin Kathy, who says that she loves Kat's explanation of drone, absolutely brilliant. She really captured that feeling of uneasiness that grief has, and that is always there in the background of whatever you do for a long time. It's only now that she explains it that I understand that it was there. So thank you very much for that great comment, and well done. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
Awesome. So you can see the page still? Nothing?
No, it's
No,
zoomed in.
it's this the top of the page.
Here?
That's perfect.
Why is
Everybody else, yes, I see a lot of nods.
a lot of nods happening?
Yeah, it's happening.
Okay, yeah,
so
that's
we're
great.
good.
Okay, so they talk about form equaling content in a lot of poetry workshops that I've participated in. And as you can see on the page, Novena is presented in a non kind of linear way. Could you talk a little bit about the form and the content?
The form of Novena was essentially, I mean, if you look on the very first page and then the second page on the left column, that's all me and my singular voice and everything that's going on in my head at the time. So trying to set the scene of what's happening in front of me, what's outside, everything is chaotic in my head, and yet at the same time there's what's happening outside. So outside within the room. So the prayers are happening. So it's kind of that duality of everything that I was thinking, feeling, seeing, and the one constant that I had was the prayers. So that was kind of almost the grounding influence that really, for me, it did bring that sense of comfort. It brought that whole idea of, even if things felt like they were chaotic and falling apart on the one hand, here's this source of comfort that's always been there, that's always going to be there, this tradition that I've known since I was a child, that's going to be there for me. And the people that are reciting this prayer and, you know, carrying through with this tradition are also there as well.
All right. Okay, so we wanted to keep it around an hour. So we have about 15 minutes to cover a couple of readings. Are you up for it, Shirley?
Yes, and there's a question, so maybe we should
Sure.
get to that question first. So was there a specific meaning for choosing those parts of the prayer of the novena? Essentially, those were the parts I was hearing things kind of in and out. So what was going on in my head, and then I would then drift from my head to what was going on externally. So those were the parts that I felt like I was hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what I was trying to convey, everything that was going on externally and internally simultaneously. So that's hopefully it answers your question. And I see that there's another comment, so if I can just do this and then we can
Do
get
it,
on
yeah.
to you. So thank you, Shirley and Kat, for this beautiful short. The first time I watched it, I heard it. The second time, I felt it. That's lovely, thank you.
Wow.
The last verses affected me the most since I was the one who had to choose the clothes my father would be buried in. You know, I'm sorry you had to go through that, and I feel you. I was the same with my mom. So, and it's the hard task. So, sending you lots of love for that and support. That's never an easy thing to do. So, thank you for sharing that.
I actually never even considered, like, you don't consider these things because you never really, you think about, yes, your parents are going to pass, but you don't think about like the small details that stick with you, like having to pick the clothes or take the last clothes that they were wearing. Like, it's just.
But I think ultimately that's what is some of the most important things are those details of when somebody dies. It's not, to me, it was like, oh, I can't just call this person. Oh, the house doesn't smell the same without my mother cooking this, you know, there aren't her clothes anymore because, so it's all those little details that make up the larger picture of grief that you don't realize until you go through it. And yeah, I just wanted to say that it's just a lot of smaller things that make up the greater whole that really encapsulates grief.
Mm-hmm. Just with the last comment about choosing the specific parts of the prayer, it reminds me that I had a question for Kat about the actual voices in the Novena short. They have like this ghostly kind of texture to them. How did you create that?
Yeah, so I had asked April Aliermo, who mixed the audio, to do that. And it's the same kind of intention, was to make it seem that it's further apart from Shirley's voice to create that space. Um, and I'm not really sure how to do that technically because I don't work with mixing audio, or like I haven't done it myself. So I asked her expertise on that because I know that she does sound projects and she's done her own mixing for live music. So yeah, I think just couple of back and forth um, saying how we wanted it to sound. I think Shirley was also very involved in making sure that there is that separation. So um, yeah.
Cool. All right. So Shirley, you ready to get performative, I guess? I've
Ready, I
chosen.
was just muted, so I am ready.
Okay, so I chose five. If we get through them, we get through them. So the first one I'd like you to read is Body on page 9.
Okay. This is Body. There in your bed lies an atlas, an archipelago of bones, ridges and valleys of sunken flesh, estuaries of veins. But under the blankets of clothes, a beating heart.
Um, that's, I don't know, it's just beautiful. I can't. So the next one I would like you to read is Despedida. Do
What
either of
page
you
is
want
it
to
on?
explain what Despedida is? It's on 29.
Page 29. 29. Sorry, I'm just flipping here. For me, Despedida, it's a farewell party. And it's usually the context of a farewell party is somebody is going abroad.
Yeah.
Somebody's going away. And in this instance, at a funeral, somebody is going away, but just not in the same sense. So that's part of the play on the word Despedida.
Yeah.
Do you see your freshly colored hair? And the lace you wore to that wedding just over a year before? It hangs so differently on the body in front of me now. Your face is changed in a mysterious way, transformed without its spirit. I put candy in your hands, under the broken rosary, weaving through your fingers like ivy. Because you never know who you're going to meet.
I remember on your launch night for Mercy that you actually handed a couple of boxes of chocolates around. Do you just want to share with the people why you did that?
Well, my mom always had candy in her pockets. And she always had candy in her pockets because she was always concerned with, well, what if I see this cousin's child or this cousin's child, as she was walking around and in the malls, just generally just meeting people. And she never wanted to be empty-handed, and she always was very generous in wanting to give them something, even if it was something as small as a candy. She always wanted to have something to give them. So it just made sense for me on her send-off that she had candy with her, because, you know, you just never know.
You know, when I travel and I'm going to do something for my books or something like that, I always bring Pluma with me. I bring you guys in spirit, but I also bring you like physically with your books. Like I am the mule. And
Thank you.
whenever I talk about your work, I always come back to that night and how incredibly I felt about the whole thing, you know, just the small details of doing things like how your mother would do them. Make sure you have something for other people because you never know who you're going to meet. And that's why I love that poem in particularly, because there is that sense of, you know, it's a celebration like Despedida. Every time I hear Despedida, I'm like, ah, yeah, I'm going to get to eat. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. But this is like you said, it's a play on words. They are going away, but it's not in that way. It is celebratory in a way, but not in the same way. Um, yeah. So the next poem I'd like you to read, if you would, is titled "As You Wish," and it's on page 32.
Okay. As you wish. You were still in the Philippines, by a dock inhaling sea salt, enjoying the dance of the palms. Your ancestral home of your nieces and nephews, sisters and brothers, mother and father, above and below the earth, where the taste of milkfish is clean and pure, where you are full of mangoes and youth, in a time that eclipses all meaning. You are still in the Philippines, but you're buried in snow, an ocean away, at your request.
You know, like if I could sit and talk to you about every single poem in this, I would probably start crying, just because there are certain things about that poem and all of these poems, like that you are still in the Philippines. You know, I think about, maybe I'm morbid, but sometimes I think about when my parents pass and they spend 6 months out of the year here, 6 months out of the year in the Philippines. And I think, what will it be like when they're eventually gone? Maybe I can just imagine that they're still in the Philippines, you know?
That's what somebody actually told me when her mother died. She was in Winnipeg and her mother was in the Philippines. And it's so much easier for her just to think that her mother is still there.
Yeah, dude, that's like too much for me right now. So we're getting close to the 5-minute mark to ending. I would have loved to get through the other uh, 2 or 3, but I wanted to close with opening it up to any questions that anybody might have before we go to our closing. So just wait and see if anybody's got any questions. I know we've gotten some great ones throughout, so we might be covered in that respect. So if you want to send a question in the chat, we can do that. Let's see.
But in the meantime, if anybody's thinking of questions, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who came tonight, who attended this screening of Novena, and to hear the collaboration between Kat and myself. It was a wonderful project to work on, and I'm so happy that we were able to share it with you. And thank you so much to Kat for not only creating this beautiful score that went with the piece, but also for appearing tonight, especially because it's her birthday.
Happy
and
birthday.
She's spending it with us. So happy birthday.
Oh, thank you guys. Oh, thanks for having me. I'm feeling a lot. I have a question here from Hooligan. Just asking me if my the band that I'm part of, Pantaya, is on any streaming platform. The answer is yes. On all of it.
On all of it.
So you just have to type in our band name, Pantaya, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. I don't know who else. Like, it's also on Bandcamp.
I'm just typing it in the chat, everybody. Spotify.
Yeah. We released our debut record in May of this year.
Cool.
And I can share the link to the Vimeo here if anybody wants to watch it again. But
Yeah,
I forgot. You got
that,
it? Okay.
Yeah, if there was some way to watch the film again, and you can post it in the chat right now if you want, if people want to like just kind of queue that up for themselves once we dip out of here. And I will send a follow-up email to the Eventbrite registries, so I can just send that to you guys so you have it in your email.
And we have a question. I have to thank you first as well, especially for hosting this evening and for creating the questions and pulling together. So thank you, V. We have a question. When are you and V, so me and you, V, collaborating? Well, after this, we can discuss.
I don't know. What can we do? We both write. We can have like
we can be really protective of each other's work and not show it to one another for all eternity. So unless it's another different multimedia project.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult when it's two writers collaborating. Like if it's a script or something, I could see that happening. But if it's like a book, it would be a little bit difficult. I mean, we could go the Tarantino kind of route, and like you can take half of the book, like, and then I can take the other half and do a Dusk Till Dawn thing, and I'll have vampires on my side, and you can just have like the Reservoir Dog type stuff, or beautiful things. I don't know what I'm saying.
Some people are starting to type in here. So the first one is curious on the context of the snow in the poem. So the context for the snow in the poem is, I mean, it just adds to the sort of bleakness of it, but also this all happened in the dead of winter, January in Winnipeg. So you can imagine how not only is this a bleak situation, but the weather in Winnipeg is not friendly at that time. And it just added and made a bleak situation even bleaker. So that really is a true snapshot of everything that was happening on that first night. So thank you for that question. I have a couple of comments. So thank you to Joy for saying that this was beautiful. So thank you for that. That was lovely. And I have a comment here saying, thank you, Shirley and Kat, for sharing this beautiful piece. It was really touching. I love the backdrop of winter in this video, and it really reminded me of times when I've experienced Filipino culture in a Canadian backdrop. I found it was subtle here, but really resonated with me. Do you feel like this comes through a lot in your work? Yes, I do actually. And I don't feel, it's interesting. I mean, I write from a lens of being Filipino Canadian, but I don't like to restrict myself to that lens. It comes up a lot in my work simply because I write about my life a lot. And that's living through that lens of being Filipino Canadian. It just is inevitable that it comes up. But other work that I have, like my third collection, Children Shouldn't Use Knives, for example, that more resonates with just the intricacies of childhood, and that has really nothing to do with my Filipino culture. So it's very sort of liquid in the way that I work. For me, it's just all boils down to, this is my experience and this is what I'm writing. So whether or not it comes through as Filipino is, I live a very fluid existence with that. So it's reflected in what I write. Thanks for that question.
It's so interesting. Kind of, I wanted to respond to that because I think my work is very because the songs, it's visually like Filipino. The sound is tuned to like Western ear, I guess. So that's a really
Sorry, Kat,
cool.
you're cutting out a little bit. Can
Yeah.
you repeat that?
Oh, I'm just saying that my work is Filipino. I think that because of the work that I do with the gongs, with kulintang, then the work is automatically like on a Filipino Canadian lens, and I think that's like a big contrast to what you were saying. So I just wanted to kind of like respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, I write what I know, and a lot of what I know is informed by my culture. And I say this as a joke, I'm just prefacing this. It's a joke, but if anybody's going to appropriate my culture, it's going to be me.
Same.
Are there any other questions? Did you get any, Shirley?
No, that's everything. Does anybody have anything else they want to add?
Last chance. Okay. All right. Well, it's like time to wrap up. We're 3 minutes over a little bit. And I'd like to thank all of you who are viewing, who have asked questions. Thank you for joining us from your homes or wherever you are tonight. Hopefully you are being safe and keeping your physical distance and washing your hands and all of that great stuff. I hope that you enjoyed our screening and the discussion with Kat and Shirley's readings. And I just want to thank Shirley for inviting me to facilitate and be part of this and feel like I'm not completely alone here on this 5 acres, but I still have people out there that are interested in talking to us and seeing me and stuff like that. So, and thank you, Kat, for joining us, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Have a good time. Don't do anything too crazy.
You mean like going to bed early?
Yeah, pretty nuts. That's pretty nuts. Shirley, is there anything else that you wanted to add, or Kat, anything? Nothing?
No, I think, yeah, I'm just feeling really like grateful right now for us to be able to just talk about the work and share space together. It's really, I think, part of the healing too, whatever it is.
Yeah. Grief is a big thing to kind of tackle, and I respect Shirley for putting this into a form that she can share with people, because as I said, opening this whole chat, that I feel a little bit somewhat more prepared for the inevitable in some small way. And it's kind of like that weird thing where when you have an allergy to something, you just if you just take it in small doses, you might find a way through it. It might find some immunity to it, and like you're never going to be immune to death or grief. But there are it, what's the thing that people say? It's
You
only
just learn to live with it. It never really
yeah,
goes away. You
it
just learn
doesn't.
to live
And
with it.
Yeah.
grief is not linear. It's cyclical. You go through these phases. So if there are things in your life that can kind of show you some hope, like mercy or some beauty in the loss of somebody, then you know, what more can you ask for a piece of literature? All right, so thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for everybody for joining tonight. And
Thank you,
if we do it
everybody.
again, we're gonna invite you guys out again and we'll do it all over again. It'll be fun.
Thanks, and have a good night, good day, wherever you are. Thanks, everyone.
Bye guys. Have a good
Bye.
one.
Bye.